a growl under a flooded underpass, and a yellow dog that won't let anyone close. Maya Carter kneels in the rain until it does. She's 28, black, beautiful, and broke. 14 stray dogs live in her backyard. Her rent is late. Her boots are caked in mud. She names the injured Labrador Sonny and stitches him back together on a clinic floor at midnight. Across the city, a man is looking for that same dog, Kang Min Jae. They call him the Black Hound. A hound is inked down the side of his neck. His suits are tailored. His cars are black and quiet. The people who whisper his name look away when they say it. Sonny belongs to him. When Maya heals the dog and Min Jae comes to claim him, two worlds that should never touch reach for the same soft thing. Her calloused hands, his careful ones, and something under all that quiet in him that feels like a warning she can't quite hear yet. Before starting the story, comment down below where you are watching from and what time it is there. If stories of karma, love, and hidden truths move you, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click Join to become a member and help our channel. Maya wedged the door shut with her hip and counted the bowls anyway. 11. She'd bought food for 9. A brown mutt shouldered past her knees toward the yard, and 3 more followed the sound of kibble hitting steel. She topped off each bowl with a smaller scoop than yesterday, then pressed her palm to the sack until it flattened. The backyard smelled of wet fur and cheap disinfectant. Tarps sagged over crates. A puppy chewed the corner of one, and she nudged it away with her muddy boot without looking down. Her phone buzzed against the treat bag at her hip. Hannah, you paid rent yet? Morning to you too. Maya, I'll figure it out. She crouched to lift a limping terrier and checked the stitches along its flank. The clinic pays Friday. That money goes to antibiotics, and you know it. She did. She turned the terrier over, pressed the gauze, said nothing, and set it back down among the others. A knock came from the side gate. Mrs. O stood there in her housecoat, a foil-covered plate balanced on both hands, her reading glasses fogged. You skipped dinner again. I ate. You did not. The old woman pushed the plate through the gap in the fence. Eat, then think about the 14th. The landlord asked me about you. Maya took the plate, warm, rice and something with garlic. She held it against her chest and let the heat sink through her shirt before she trusted her voice. Thank you, Mrs. O. 14 dogs. Mrs. O clicked her tongue. 1 woman. 12. Maya smiled. The other 2 are fostering out Saturday. They weren't, and both of them knew it. That night, the storm came sideways. Rain hammered the clinic windows while Maya mopped the last kennel and locked the drug cabinet twice out of habit. Hannah had left an envelope on the counter with 40,000 won inside and no note. Maya folded it into her back pocket and didn't say she'd seen it. The drive home flooded the low road, so she cut under the highway where the underpass stayed dry. Her headlights swept the concrete. Something moved against the far pillar and then went still. She braked. Left the engine running. Yellow, a big dog, pale as wet sand, pressed into the corner where the water couldn't reach. One back leg tucked wrong beneath it. Its lip peeled back the instant her boot hit the pavement, and a growl rolled low under the rain. Maya stopped. She didn't step closer. She lowered herself to the wet ground, 6 feet out, and looked at the puddle instead of the dog. Rain soaked through her jeans. She unclipped the water bottle from her bag, poured a capful, set it down, and slid it forward with 2 fingers. Okay, she said. Okay, I'm not going anywhere. The growl held. She waited it out. She broke a training treat into crumbs and laid them in a short trail across the concrete, then folded her hands in her lap and let the storm fill the silence. 10 minutes, 15. The tail didn't move, but the ears turned. The lip came down. The dog dragged itself 1 length forward, nose working the air, and took the nearest crumb off the ground with a softness that undid her. There you are, she whispered. She let it come to her. When the warm muzzle finally touched her knee, she stayed frozen, then slid one hand under the ribs and felt the fast, thin heartbeat, and the crust of dried blood along the shoulder. No collar, no tag, just a body that had been running from something. She got him into the back seat, wrapped in her jacket, and drove one-handed to the clinic, talking the whole way about nothing. Hannah met her at the door in pajamas, swearing. "You called me at midnight for a stray." "He's not a stray. Look at him." Someone loved this dog. They worked under the exam light, Hannah shaving the shoulder, Maya holding the big head against her stomach. Sprain, laceration, exhaustion. Nothing broken. The golden coat dried to the color of early sun. "He needs a name for the chart," Hannah said. Maya looked at the fur going bright under the lamp. Sunny. Across the city, the same rain came down on a man who owned most of what it fell on. Kang Min-jae stood at the mouth of an alley, in a suit that cost more than Maya's year, soaked through, a leash coiled, and useless in his fist. His phone lit the dark, Seok-woo's voice, flat, on speaker. Every street, from the river to the tunnel, nothing. Min-jae didn't answer for a long moment. What he didn't say into that phone was the thing he'd never said aloud to anyone, that the dog was the last living creature that had known his brother. "Widen it," he said. "Every shelter, every clinic, call them when they open." "Sir, it's a storm. He could be." "He's alive." Min-jae's jaw tightened under the ink that climbed his neck. "Bori is alive. Find him." He whistled once into the rain, low, a note he'd used 1,000 times in a warm house, and the storm swallowed it whole. Back at the clinic, Maya taped the last bandage and let the golden dog rest his chin in her palm. He sighed, deep, and closed his eyes as if he'd finally stopped running. She smiled down at him and made a promise she had no room to keep. "Nobody's coming for you," she said, "so I guess you're mine." She had no idea whose he was. And somewhere out in the rain, the most dangerous man in Seoul was already calling every clinic in the city. 2 weeks later, the golden Labrador chased a tennis ball across Maya's tiny apartment and knocked over a lamp. She caught it before it hit the floor and laughed. "Sonny," she scolded, "you're a menace." He wagged his whole body and dropped the ball at her feet, ribs no longer showing, coat gone bright again. She rubbed his ears and forgot, for a second, that he belonged to someone. The adoption fair filled the community lot with folding tables and barking. Maya worked the volunteer booth, clipping leashes, matching families to strays. That was when she saw the man in the dark suit. He walked the rows slowly, hands behind his back, watching every cage. Kids pressed treats through the wire and he stepped around them. He crouched at a beagle, studied it, stood again. He never reached in. He never asked a price. Maya wiped her hands on a rag and came up beside him. "You're not really looking for a dog, are you?" He glanced at her, tired eyes. "No." "Then why come to a place like this?" He was quiet a moment. "I lost mine. In the storm, 3 weeks ago. I've been to every shelter in Seoul." He pulled out his phone and turned the screen toward her. "I keep thinking Maya stopped breathing. The photo showed a pale golden Labrador on a couch, tongue out, one ear flipped. The same crooked ear. The same white patch under the chin. "His name's Bori," the man said. "People started calling him Sonny at the last shelter, but I think I found your dog." He turned fully toward her. For the first time all afternoon, something in his face cracked open. She drove him herself, because she could not wait, because his hands were shaking on the phone. He said little in the car. He gave an address in a neighborhood she couldn't afford to walk through. At her apartment door, she paused. "Wait here a second. Let me bring him to the hallway." He gets excited. She went in. Sonny lifted his head from the rug. "Bori," she said softly. The dog froze, every muscle locked. His ears rose, his nose worked the air, and something ancient moved behind his eyes. She opened the door. Bori shot past her like a fired round. He hit the man's chest and knocked him back against the wall, whining, licking, spinning. The man went down to his knees in the hallway, suit and all, and wrapped both arms around the dog's neck, and pressed his face into the fur. His shoulders trembled. Maya saw the wet track on his cheek before he ducked his head to hide it. She said nothing. She leaned in the doorframe and let him have it. When he finally looked up, his voice was rough. "How much do I owe you?" "For the vet, the food, all of it. Name any number." "Nothing." "That isn't." "He needed it." She shrugged. "So I did it. That's how it works." He studied her like she was a language he'd never learned. Bori missed her. That was the excuse, at least. 3 days later, the man knocked with the dog straining at the leash, and Bori dragged him straight to Maya's feet. So he came back. Then he came back again. His name was Min Jae. He learned to sit on her floor without ruining the suit. He learned that Mrs. O next door would feed him kimchi if he smiled. He watched Maya answer a rescue call one wet evening and, before he could think better of it, followed her down a muddy embankment after a terrified puppy trapped under a fence. He went in up to his knees. The mud swallowed his shoes. He came up cradling the shivering pup against his ruined jacket, and Maya laughed so hard she had to sit down in the dirt. $10,000 suit, she gasped. "It's fine." "It is absolutely not fine." He looked down at himself, then at the pup, then at her, and he almost smiled. Hannah found the photo first. Maya had snapped it, Min Jae, mud to the thigh, holding the puppy, and shown it at the clinic like a prize. Hannah's face went strange. "Maya, do you know who that is?" "His name's Min Jae." "That's Kang Min Jae." Hannah lowered her voice. "KJ Holdings. They call him the Black Hound. My cousin's husband worked a building he owns and saw things he won't talk about. That's a rumor." "Look at the collar of his shirt in the photo." Maya looked. Where the mud had pulled the fabric down at the neck, ink showed against skin, the sharp lines of a hound climbing his throat. She had seen it a dozen times and never let herself read it. The next time he came, a black car idled at the curb. A silent man stood beside it, hands folded, eyes everywhere. Min Jae had called him Sok Woo once, offhand, and Maya had thought nothing of it. Now she saw how the man watched the street like he expected it to attack. She let Min Jae in. She could not quite look at him. "Something's wrong," he said. "Are the rumors true?" Her voice came out smaller than she wanted. "The Black Hound, is that you?" He didn't answer fast, and the not answering was the answer. "Should I be scared?" she asked. "Probably." She held his eyes. "I'm still deciding." She stepped back and let the door drift half-closed between them, and he did not push it, and that was the most frightening thing of all. She spent that night not sleeping, 3 rescued strays curled against her legs, the golden dog snoring at the foot of the bed. In the morning, an envelope was taped to her door. She opened it in the hallway. Landlord's letterhead. Too many animals, too many complaints. One line that mattered. 72 hours to vacate. She read it twice. Then she folded it small and pushed it deep into her crossbody bag, under the treats, where no one would find it, least of all the most dangerous man in Seoul, who was, at that exact moment, dialing her number. The phone buzzed against the stack of folded blankets, and Maya let it ring twice before she answered. She was on her knees, taping a box shut. Bori's spare leash coiled on top. "You're not at the clinic," Min Jae said. "How would you know where I'm not?" "Because I'm outside your gate." She stood too fast. Through the window, she saw the black car, the door already open. She hung up and met him at the door with tape still stuck to her fingers. He stepped in and stopped. Boxes lined the hallway. 6 crates stood by the wall, each with a dog inside, and the dogs were reading the room the way dogs do, ears back, watching her hands for a signal. A gray terrier whined. Maya hadn't slept. Her eyes said it plainly. "You're moving," he said. "I'm being moved." He looked at the eviction slip pinned under a mug on the counter. He didn't touch it. "How long have you known?" "Long enough to pack." "You said nothing." "It wasn't yours to fix." Min Jae was quiet. Sokwoo waited by the car, hands folded, A shape that meant business could arrive in one phone call. Maya knew that shape now. There's a building in Songdong, Min Jae said. Empty. Yours by tonight. No? Then rent. I'll cover it. You choose the place. No? His jaw tightened. A man used to the word yes. Why do you never accept help? Because help shouldn't mean someone else gets to decide my life. She said it evenly, no heat, which made it land harder. I'll figure out where I go. I always do. She glanced at the crates. It's them I can't figure out. Some of these dogs have nowhere. Old ones, sick ones. Shelters are full. So I said I'll figure it out. He held her look for a long moment. Then he nodded once, the nod of a man filing something away, and left. The car pulled off. The terrier whined again, and Maya crouched and pressed her forehead to the crate bars and let herself, for exactly 10 seconds, feel it. Then she got up and started calling. She called Hannah first. A friend of a friend had a farm, maybe 2 spots. She called a foster network and left a message. She called Mrs. Maido, who could take 1 small one, no more. By dusk, she had homes for 4. 2 dogs still had nowhere, and the sun was gone, and she sat on the porch step counting crates, like a woman counting reasons to keep going. Across the city, Min Jae came home and Bori met him at the door, tail low, reading him. The dog followed him room to room. When he sat, Bori pressed a warm weight against his leg and would not move. She won't take anything, Min Jae told the dog, because there was no one else to tell. Not a building, not money, nothing. Bori's tail thumped once. He remembered the night he'd lost this dog, a gate left open, hours of Sukwoo's men combing the district, coming back empty, and a woman he'd never met had found a lost golden dog with no collar, no way of knowing anyone was searching, and had taken him in, fed him, kept him safe on the chance that somewhere, someone was missing him. She gave shelter to the ones who had lost their way home. And now she'd lost her own, because of the ones she sheltered. Min Jae sat with that a long time. The irony had teeth. He'd offered her a building, and she'd heard a leash. He'd offered money, and she'd heard a collar. She wasn't refusing help, she was refusing to belong to anyone. Fine. Then he'd give her something that couldn't own her back. He picked up the phone. The property on her street, he said. Who holds it? Sokwoo answered in under a minute. Buy it, Min Jae said. Tonight if you can. Whatever it costs. Morning came thin and cold. The moving truck idled at the curb. Maya carried the last crate down the steps. 2 dogs still unplaced. Her plan for them nothing more than a name and a maybe. The landlord stood by the gate with a clipboard and the small satisfaction of a man watching a deadline he owned. Then the cars came. 3 of them, black, unhurried, filling the narrow street. Doors opened. Sukwoo stepped out first, then Min Jae, coat buttoned against the morning. The landlord straightened, clipboard forgotten. Sukwoo crossed to him and spoke low. Maya couldn't hear the words. She saw the landlord's face change, saw the color leave it, saw him look at the paper Sukwoo held, then look at the house, then look at nothing at all. What's happening? Maya said. The landlord didn't answer. He was already walking to his car, fast, like a man leaving a place that was no longer his. Min Jae came to her. He didn't hand her anything. He just stood there while she worked it out. He said the property was sold, she said slowly. This morning. It was. To who? He didn't answer with words. He looked instead at Bori, waiting in the open car door, at the 2 unplaced dogs in their crates, at her, at the mud on her boots, and the exhaustion under her eyes. Why? She said, and her voice cracked on it. When something I loved was lost, he said, you gave it a safe place. His eyes went to Bori, then back to her. I couldn't watch you lose yours. The street was very quiet. Is this still about Bori? She asked. It stopped being about Bori a while ago. Maya stood in the middle of the road she'd been about to leave forever, holding a leash for a dog with a home now. and could not tell if the thing rising in her chest was relief or the first cold edge of belonging to someone she had sworn she never would. The botland smelled of cut grass and wet paint. Maya walked the fence line while Min-jae carried a bag of feed on one shoulder, sleeves rolled, watch catching the low sun. Bori trotted between them like he owned the deed. "You missed a post," she said. "I know. I left it for you." She looked at him, this man who had never left anything unfinished in his life. He shrugged, as if it cost him nothing. It cost him something. For 3 weeks, the world stayed small. Fences, water bowls, a leaking roof they fixed together. Then a stray came in limping, ribs like a xylophone, and Maya read the ear notch. "Fight dog," Hannah said, gloves snapping. "Someone's running a ring again." Maya knew where strays gathered. She followed the thread, the way she always did. Treat bag on her hip, camera in her palm. A shuttered warehouse district. A gate that opened for money. She photographed everything. Crates, blood in the dirt, Choi Dae-hyun laughing under a bare bulb, and behind him, 2 men in suits she didn't recognize. She didn't recognize them. Sok-woo did. "These faces," Sok-woo said, jaw tight over the printed shots. "They belong to people who hate the boss." Min-jae went very still. The photos on the table were of dogs. He was looking at the men. "Where is she now?" "The clinic." The first threat came as a dead flower on Maya's doorstep. The second came as Mrs. Well, shaken, describing a car that idled outside all night. Min-jae doubled the men on her street and said nothing about why. "Stop going out there," he said that evening. "I have 4 dogs coming in tomorrow. Cancel them." "I don't cancel dogs, Min-jae." He set his glass down too carefully. "There are people who would hurt you to hurt me. Then I'll be careful." "Careful isn't enough." His voice climbed. "You walk into every dark place in this city like nothing can touch you." "Something already touched me." "You did." She stepped closer, furious, alive. "You can't control everything you love." "I'm not trying to control you. You're trying to stop something happening to me because you're scared." The truth of it landed between them like a dropped plate. He turned away. Bori whined at the door. The call came the next morning, official sounding, an anonymous tip. A ring at an address across the river. Dogs chained, dying tonight. Maya was in her boots before the coffee cooled. She should have told him. She sent one text and drove. The warehouse was empty when she stepped inside. No dogs, just gasoline in the air, and a door that clanged shut behind her. Then, the first orange bloom crawled up the far wall. At the clinic, Min-jae read her text and felt the floor tilt. He knew that address. It belonged to no one Choi could afford. It belonged to the men in the suits. "It's a trap," he said, already moving. Sok-woo threw him the keys. Bori was in the car before the engine caught, nose pressed to the crack of the window. Smoke poured from the roof when they arrived. Firelight lived in every pane. Min-jae shouted her name into a roar that swallowed it. Bori pulled the leash from his hand and ran. The dog went low along the loading dock, past the flames, to a side door blistering with heat. He barked once, twice, hammering. Min-jae followed the sound and shouldered through. She was against the far wall, coughing, a fallen beam pinning the hem of her jacket. Beyond her, cages, dogs, real ones, screaming behind wire. "You came," she rasped. "Always." He lifted the beam. She tore free. Then she pointed at the cages, and of course she did, and of course he didn't argue. They worked the latches together, coughing, eyes streaming, dragging trembling animals toward the broken door while the ceiling groaned. The last cage stuck. Min-jae wrenched it with both hands until the wire gave, and a beam came down where they had knelt a heartbeat before. They ran. Bori herded the loose dogs into the dark, barking them toward air. Outside, on the gravel, Maya collapsed against a wheel and counted the animals. 11. All of them breathing. The warehouse folded in on itself behind them with a sound like the end of something. Min-jae took her face in both his blackened hands. I thought I lost you. You didn't. I love you. He said it like a confession he'd been running from for years. I love you, and I don't know how to keep you safe, and I'm going to stop trying to. She laughed or sobbed, soot on her teeth. Good. The men in the suits had come to burn a message. Instead, the fire drew every siren in the district, and the ring burned with them. Ledgers and cages and Choi's whole clandestine trade. Sok-woo made certain the right photographs reached the right hands. Dae-hyun ran out of dark places to stand. Weeks later, the land had a name over the gate. Bori House. They bought the adjacent field together this time, her signature beside his, decided across a kitchen table instead of announced. The first adoption fair filled the yard with strollers and leashes and the smell of grilled corn. Maya moved through it, hoarse-voiced, matching dogs to families. She found Min-jae at the center of the chaos. On the ground, suit ruined, 3 puppies climbing his chest, while Bori lay against his side like a sentinel off duty. A child asked if the big golden one was for adoption. Min-jae scratched Bori's ear and didn't look up. No, he said, that one's ours. Some things you can't buy, and some things you stop trying to control, and the only ones worth keeping are the ones that choose to stay. If this story moved you, stop for a moment and reflect. Have you ever given shelter to something the world had already thrown away, before you knew if you could afford to? Could you accept help from someone feared by everyone else without losing the person you are? And would you be brave enough to love the gentleness hidden inside a man everyone taught you to fear? Tell us your experiences and feelings in the comments. We read them all. And if you believe in stories about compassion, second chances, and love without possession, leave a like, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and click join to become a part of our community and help the channel.